Okay, welcome to part two of the breakdown of David Croft from Skysports lying to you, the fan of Formula One. Please watch the first part if you've not already done so. So, the sport of Formula One lies to you, the fan. These are the culprits. They lied about Abu Dhabi 2021 to condition you to believe things which are completely untrue, and they do not explain the rules of the sport to you. So this is the second half of this explained the FIA regulations and the likelihood of another Mercedes appeal video that has been seen by almost 600,000 people and liked by 9,000 people on Sky Sports F1's YouTube channel. There's going to be a slight overlap, so you can pick up the gist of this one again. So here we go.
But there is a big question that needs to be answered, and I'm sure Michael Massey in time will answer it. That is why, when we've seen races this season, Baku, albeit at a higher speed, faster part of the track, when Max Verstappen crashed, we had a red flag. And we had 2 laps of racing to the checkered flag after that red flag. Why wasn't the red flag shown last night? Would that have been the fairest way to ensure that we had 5 laps of racing to the checkered flag?
Okay, Crofty is doing a video to educate Formula One fans about the regulations. The video is entitled Explained, the FIA's regulations. So he's just proposed this notion of, oh, well, why didn't they red flag the race? That would have been the fairest way. You're talking to us about the regulations of the sport, Crofty. This is what you're here to explain to people. So I will talk you through the regulations of the sport. And it says this. The clerk of the course deems circumstances are such that the track cannot be negotiated safely, even behind the safety car. So this is the criteria for throwing a red flag. When there is a safety incident, the race director has various tools at his disposal with which to deal with that safety incident. That can stem from either waved yellow flags, virtual safety car, or red flag. Now, if you need to use a red flag, there is certain criteria that you would use. And one of them criteria is this. The clerk of the course deems circumstances are such that the track cannot be negotiated safely, even behind the safety car. Well, the empirical evidence is there that that track could be negotiated safely by the virtue of the fact that it was negotiated safely by that safety car and those competitors whilst that incident was cleared up. The times where you would see a red flag after a safety car deployment is if a driver or somebody on the course is in peril and you need to send out the medical car and you do not want cars flying by every lap whilst that medical emergency is being dealt with. So that would be grounds for a red flag. If the cars can't make it past that area of the track safely, so if the track is blocked or there's debris strewn all over the track where there's not a safe passageway through, that would be grounds for throwing a red flag. Neither of those applied in Abu Dhabi. If the barriers are damaged and it is determined that the operation to restore those barriers to be able to perform the role that they're there for is going to take a prolonged period of time, rather than take that time out of the race, you could red flag it and restart the race some 20 minutes, half an hour after that, rather than allow all that time to be taken out of a race. Evidently, and again, the empirical evidence is that was not required in Abu Dhabi, and that is there by virtue of the fact that they did resume racing, so they did determine those barriers to be okay and able to withstand another impact should another impact have occurred there. That is the evidence. So, it was not a red flag situation. According to the regulations of the sport, it did not meet the criteria for throwing a red flag. And yet Crofty, who is making a video to explain regulations to you, proposes that. He gives Baku as an example. And I'll explain the reason for Baku. Baku, Max Verstappen's tyre blew out unexpectedly. And because of the location of that incident, what they did to allow the clear-up operation on track to progress quicker, They didn't want the safety car snake of cars driving past that incident they were trying to clear, and so they were able to divert them cars through the pits, whilst that enabled the quicker clear-up operation. However, Red Bull suggested the notion that we have just seen in this race 2 incidents of unexpected tyre blowouts. With all these cars being brought through the pit lane, if a further incident like that were to happen, one of those cars may lose control and career into one of the pit garages, causing a massive safety concern. Therefore, it might be, on the grounds of safety, the better thing to do to stop this from happening, red flag the race and resume it. So that decision was made on the grounds of a safety concern. Nothing to do with facilitating drama, because had that not been an issue, had that not have been a concern about tyres blowing out, they would not have red flagged that race, because there was no grounds to red flag that race in Baku to set up that what happened. But Crofty here wants to bring that into the mix because you don't know that. You don't know the parameters for that, and so they lie to you to validate what took place in Abu Dhabi 2021.
It would have meant that both Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen could have had a free change of tyres. It would have meant that one car didn't have the advantage over the other. We would have had a standing start. And I think both teams would have accepted that.
It wasn't an option. The criteria wasn't met. In every race of the season, in every race ever since 2012, well, in every race since the safety car protocols have been what they are, you would deal with that Latifi crash being what it was by deploying the safety car. You wouldn't red flag that race due to the nature of that incident. Cars could get past that incident behind that safety car, slowing them cars down to a appropriate speed, allowing people to be on track to clear that incident away. You deal with that situation with a safety car. You would not red flag the race for that incident. So don't make this as a proposal as an alternative way of ending that event. Not appropriate.
Lewis Hamilton had a 10-second lead, wiped out.
And this isn't about choices. It's not about, oh, we would have liked to have seen this. This is a set of rules and regulations that you must adhere to when you are applying them to a sporting event. Oh, what would we like to see here? Can we manipulate the rules so that we get to see what we want? No. If it doesn't meet that criteria, then rules don't apply.
Through no fault of his own, Max Verstappen and Red Bull played a clever strategy decision that Mercedes...
Nothing was clever about it, but again, this is the notion that we constantly get fed with. Oh, Red Bull played a clever strategy. No, what they did, they manipulated things with this complicit agreement of all teams with this notion of making sure that this race didn't end behind the safety car. That agreement clearly took place. You can see from all of the communications between the teams and their drivers during that safety car period, none of those teams called out the nature of the race director freestyling them rules. Rules that all of them teams knew. And yet all of them teams remained silent about it. So they were complicit. And with that complicit agreement, Red Bull did their thing. And there'll be future videos about that, detailing exactly what they did.
Weren't in a position to do, but there was no red flag. And if we go back to our coverage on Sky Sports F1 over the weekend, Michael Massey told Karun Chandhok, after we speculated about a red flag...
This is ridiculous. Michael Massey told Karun Chandhok after we'd speculated about a red flag. Now, why would you speculate? Why would you talk about this? This is messed up. Watch and listen.
Because we've seen Kimi Raikkonen crash at turn 14, that there would be no red flag for crashes at turn 14. So was that his...
I'm going to rewind that. Michael Massey said there would be no red flag for crashes at turn 14.
Mercedes weren't in a position to do, but there was no red flag. And if we go back to our coverage on Sky Sports F1 over the weekend, Michael Massey told Karun Chandhok, after we speculated about a red flag, because we've seen Kimi Raikkonen crash at turn 14, that there would be no red flag for crashes at turn 14. So was that...
the race director cannot say there would be no red flag for crashes at turn 14. You cannot say that. And the reason you cannot say that is you don't know what the outcome of a crash at turn 14 is. Because if a driver crashes at turn 14 and is severely injured and you need to deploy the medical car to deal with him, you're going to red flag that race. If the debris or the cars involved in a crash at turn 14 are strewn over the track so that that track is not safely passable, you can't get through there with the safety car or the other cars, you have to red flag that. If the barrier is damaged at turn 14 and needs repair, you would red flag that. So you cannot state, oh, if there's a crash at turn 14, there will not be a red flag. What the fuck are you talking about, Crofty? The fact that this was even a conversation beforehand is utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous.
That his mindset going into the final race. Now, that sounds like I'm being hypercritical over the race director. I'm not. I think Michael Massey is a fine man.
Look at him talking about the man's character. We're talking about the FIA's regulations. The video is explaining to 600,000 people what the FIA regulations are, their purpose, how the race director. You've done none of that. Absolutely none of that.
I've known him many years now. He's always been very open and honest whenever we've had discussions. What I would say about Michael Massey, he is overworked and understaffed and undersupported by the FIA.
He's a bit tired. What I would say about Michael Massey, he's a bit tired because he's had to do a bit of work. Yeah, it's really tough, the work that he does, having to go to a Grand Prix and look at the screen and make a few decisions. Oh, it's so taxing for him. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
He is the race director of Formula One, but that is not his only job. He has a huge amount of responsibility for single-seater championships around the world. He needs help. The FIA need to support.
So the video is talking about the FIA regulations. You're supposed to be explaining the regulations, but you're saying, oh, Michael Massey needs help. What relevance is that? That's not about the regulations. It's not about the regulations, is it? Validating.
Michael Massey. Charlie Whiting always had Herbie Blash by his side, very experienced in Formula One, former mechanic, along with Charlie many years ago.
If you look at the photographs or the footage of FIA race control, there are at least 10 FIA personnel in race control with Michael Massey. And Crofty here is trying to convince you, the viewer, the fan of the sport, that, oh, it's just Michael Massey under all this pressure on his own and he can't cope with it. And it's just not fair on Michael Massey. It's a complete smokescreen. It's a lie. It's not a difficult task. Being a football referee is far harder. You're in a stadium with a crowd of 70,000 people. You've got 11 players from each side trying to influence your decision making by claiming that they want the decision in their favour. You've got the managers from both teams and their benches shouting. You've got fans from both teams trying to influence you as your referee, and you've got to make on-the-spot, split-second decisions. As a race director, you are sat there in a nice little cosy air-conditioned room looking at a few monitors. And you get a chance to see something, and then you get the chance to go, oh, something's happening there. I think the best way of dealing with this is to deploy the safety car. Oh, I've got a team on the radio to me asking for something. Shut up, not interested in what you've got to say. Oh, it's so difficult for Michael Massey doing that job as a race director. It's so hard for Michael. No, it really isn't. It really isn't.
But Charlie and Herbie were a team. Michael Massey needs a team around him. Formula One contributes the biggest source of income to the FIA, and the FIA.
That's rather telling, isn't it? Formula One gives the FIA the most amount of money. So you think that they could influence the FIA. Formula One can get the FIA to make the decisions that Formula One wants, because that way the FIA get the most amount of money from Formula One. Rather strange this, isn't it?
FIA need to start supporting Formula One, and a race director who is overworked, who's barely had a day off this season, has put on a Herculean effort to get all the races done, but needs support now from whoever the...
So you're explaining the FIA's regulations, or you're excusing Michael Massey's conduct? What are you doing?
Incoming president will be as Jean Todt stands down in a few days' time.
So over 24 hours on now, Crofty, from the race ending, the situation we're at the moment is that the initial protests have been rejected by the stewards' inquiry, but we have this notice of a intention to lodge a second appeal. Given what you've just said...
Oh, the initial protest has been dismissed. Well, you've not explained the corrupt nature of that, but that's for the videos.
There about the race directors overriding control and decision making in this race and on the track. Can you see anything else except for Max Verstappen being crowned the champion?
No, I can't.
So, Mr. Head there in the studio reinforces. Oh, so you've explained the overriding authority. You know, so people. Oh yeah, we all understand that. What have you explained about it? Nothing. You've explained nothing about it, but you've confirmed to everybody that that's what he's done.
Appeal. Given what you've just said there about the race directors overriding control and decision making in this race and on the track, can you see anything else except for Max Verstappen being crowned the champion?
No, I can't. And I'll come on to Max Verstappen.
No, you can't, Crofty. Why can't you?
In a moment, because I think we need to end this discussion talking about the 34th champion of the world. And what I'm hearing is that it sounds like Mercedes will probably back off from a further appeal.
Oh, why would that be then? Why? How you get to hear of this then, Crofty? It's a complete sport-wide arrangement.
They don't want to look like bad losers.
They don't want to look like bad losers. You've just had a sport fixed against you. Oh yeah, you don't want to look like a bad loser, do you? What?
Have a championship to celebrate. They are Constructors' champions for a record-breaking 8th consecutive time. They don't want to drag this on and damage the reputation of the sport.
Oh, so that's it, isn't it? Because if they expose what really goes on, then they're going to lose a lot of fans. And if you lose a lot of fans, the sport loses a lot of value. Oh, and it's all about the money for all of the teams. By getting a bigger audience, you get more people interested, you sell more tickets to events, you sell more merchandise, you attract more sponsors, you can charge more money for sponsoring your team because that sponsorship money goes into actually reaching a bigger audience for your product. So therefore, everybody makes more money out of this. So don't tell anybody that we're fixing it, because if we tell people that we're fixing it, people aren't going to want to watch anymore. And then all of the value of everything for everybody decreases.
Its reputation has been damaged to a certain extent because a lot of people just can't understand what happened last night. It's trying to explain the offside rule to young kids. You know,
a lot of people can't understand what happened. Why can't they understand? Because you can't explain it. Because you're not explaining it, and you're making out that it's complicated. Oh, it's like trying to explain the offside rule to kids. It's quite simple. Simple explanation is, if a safety incident occurs in a Grand Prix, then that has to be dealt with because safety is paramount. If a safety car is deployed to manage that safety concern, then before you resume racing, you have to carry out a set of procedures. When that safety car is deployed, it nullifies racing. So all that has gone before it gets neutralised And effectively, before you resume racing again, we have to reset the situation to a 0 position, effectively restarting the race from scratch again. It is as simple as that. It is as simple as that. And that is what those regulations are there, written that way, specifically for that purpose, and telling you how to do that. And what this sport does, it says to you, safety car, what are we going to see now? Is it going to be this? And is it going to be that? And it's exciting. And is it going to happen now? And is it going to happen then? And what you see every time is the same thing. But everybody that's watching just gets hyped up with what these wankers are hyping up. These corrupt bastards that are lying to you to hype it up. That is exactly what is happening. But rather than explain the simplicity of it, you are trying to make out that it's all too complicated for your little heads. Don't you worry your little heads about this, kids. It's all too complicated for you. It's just too complicated, too technical. But just leave it to us and we'll explain it to you. Oh, we've explained it to you. It's just a bit controversial, isn't it? That's right.
It takes a few stabs to get it right. But Mercedes don't want to appear bad losers. They just wanted to give...
Mercedes don't want to appear... So you're again projecting the notion of somebody, if they're appealing against corruption, to be bad losers. Your narrative. That's not being a bad loser. Exposing a crime doesn't make you a bad loser.
The man they think should be champion.
The man that they think should be world champion, or the man that categorically was going to be the world champion. Look at the way you project every single thing you say. The man that they think should have been world champion.
Best chance of being champion. They felt robbed by what happened.
They felt robbed. They were robbed. It's not a opinion-based thing. It's facts.
To put it into simple context, if it was to go to the FIA Court of Appeal, Mercedes would have to overturn the result of the stewards, the result of the race, and the result of the championship. That is a pretty big ask.
You describe 3 separate things when it's one thing and it accomplishes all 3. You determine the simple fact that the rules were broken. Therefore, it invalidates it from that point onwards. You know what the actual result would have been. There is no 2 ways about it. It would have been a safety car finish. Lewis Hamilton would have become an 8-time world champion. He'd have won the race, which would have won him the world championship. It is a categoric empirical fact that Lewis Hamilton completed that race distance. There should have been no overtaking. So therefore, you can void lap 58 and declare the race result as being that running order at the end of lap 57. You could declare the running order at the end of lap 56 because the race director broke the rules of the sport on lap 57 by only releasing 5 of 8 lapped cars and then bringing that safety car in that lap. That's a rule break. With 56 of a 58 lap Grand Prix elapsed, where it was fine up until that point, you don't go voiding that race. You declare that result at that point in time. That is what you do. Simple. And you are proposing, you have to overturn these 3 separate things, and that's never been done before, and there's no precedent for that. This is your role as a governing body. If something happens that has never happened before, you don't go, this has never happened before. We can't deal with this. It's your job to deal with it. Does the criminal justice system go, somebody has been killed in a way that we've never seen them being killed before? We don't know how to deal with this. Well, if it's a murder, it's a murder. But we've never seen it happen like that before, so there's no precedent for being able to convict somebody of murder for them having murdered that person in that manner. No, that's not the way it works, dickhead. Quite simple. Quite simple.
I can't see it happening. I don't think there is a precedent for...
This is the narrative you want to convince people of.
For three big decisions or three big events like that to
No, just one that overturns all three.
be overturned, and I don't think Mercedes will continue on with this appeal. But we'll hear, and we've got until Thursday to do that. But what upsets me most of all, as someone who's worked in Formula One now for 15 years, who's commentated on 300 plus races, who absolutely adores his job and adored bringing the excitement and the passion to a massive...
Lying to children. You corrupt fuck. That's what you are. You're a corrupt fuck.
Audience last night, not just in the UK, but around the world, is that people think it's a bit of a fix. It's not a fix.
Jedi mind trick. It's not a fix. I've said it's not a fix, so it's not a fix. Me and Brundle were lying about the rules of the sport before Massey broke the rules of the sport, but it's not a fix. The four stewards invited Red Bull into the appeal that they weren't allowed to be in, which Mercedes were appealing to the governing body to say, governing body, you've broken your rules. The FIA invite Red Bull into that appeal and go, oh, Red Bull, do you think that we've broken our rules? Red Bull go, oh no, the rules are something different now. We've just competed under these rules for the last 198 Grand Prix since 2012, but now there's some grey areas and now these rules are different. It's a fix. Ferrari in third place. They weren't allowed to compete for second or first. They didn't complain. Every other team that was impacted in the ways they were impacted, they didn't complain. They're all worth more money now. Bigger audiences. They didn't complain. I wonder why. Liberty Media made 4.8 billion on top of their existing 9 billion share value worth at the start of the season. See where this is going?
I think a mistake was made by Michael Massey in not throwing that red flag. But
lies. It wasn't a red flag situation.
It wasn't manipulated. And
It wasn't manipulated. I've told you it wasn't manipulated, so it's not manipulated. You're being paid to convince people, to condition people. You are filthy.
Fix. But for people to feel that way, that saddens me today, because I love this sport.
Oh, that saddens me. Tell us how you feel, Crofty. Yeah, for people to call out that this is fixed, that makes me feel bad. Fuck you. You're a corrupt bastard.
I love trying to bring it to the biggest audience that is humanly possible.
Yeah, you love being paid 100 grand to lie to children, to convince the world of a corrupt narrative, of a corrupt organisation that is making billions of pounds by lying to people and fixing sport. You corrupt bastard.
And also, it's very harsh on Lewis Hamilton, who has been hugely magnanimous in his reaction to the...
Oh, it's very harsh on Lewis Hamilton.
Disappointment of losing out on that chance to be the greatest of all time statistically. And it's also massively harsh on Max Verstappen, who...
Oh, let's all feel sorry for Max Verstappen, who's just been given a world championship. We should all feel sorry for Max.
He was a very worthy champion. He was driven like a champion, pretty much all...
What, by trying to ram the other car off the track 6 times this season at least? That's driving like a champion, is it?
Season long. 10 wins, 18 podiums, more podiums this season than any driver in a single season in the history of Formula One. He deserves to win.
Can you talk us through the criteria of what it takes to become a world champion? Is that, who gets the most podiums is the world champion? Is it who gets the most race wins is the world champion? Is it who's led the most laps becomes world champion? Or is it none of them? Is it quite simply who has accumulated the most number of points over the course of the season becomes a world champion? Oh, it's that one, isn't it? Yeah, who gets the most points? And who would have done that were it not for the sport breaking its own rules to set it up for Max Verstappen? Oh, that would be Lewis Hamilton. Oh, who deserves it now then? Who deserves it? And of them bullshit statistics that they keep reeling out, this 10 wins to Max Verstappen. Well, one of them wins was the gift of a parade in Belgium, where nobody wins a staged parade, done so that they don't have to refund spectators. There was no racing in Belgium, so nobody can win something where there was no competition. But, oh, Max won that one, even though there was no competition. So there's one. So you can take that off the 10. You take away Abu Dhabi because he didn't win that without the rule break. That drops Max Verstappen down to 8 wins for the season. Lewis Hamilton won Abu Dhabi. That means he won 9. So if you want to use that statistic, Lewis Hamilton 9 wins to 8. But it's irrelevant on the grounds that the only thing that matters is who accumulated the most points. And that was Lewis Hamilton.
Wear that number 1 on his car next year, and he will have the number 1 on his car next year. What he doesn't deserve is to have won it in the fashion that it was won through no fault of his own. That is a...
Oh, it's no fault of Max that they fixed it for Max. Max knew what was going on. Max knew what was going on. Oh, it's no fault of Max's that they fixed it for him. Oh, it was no fault of Alonso's that they fixed it for him to win the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. Well, your team cheated. Your team crashed one of its cars, Renault. Okay, to make sure your boy won. Oh, it's not Alonso's fault that they did that for him. No, your team cheated, so you get stripped of that victory. Oh, no, they don't do that, do they? They know that Renault cheated to set it up for Alonso to win. Oh, it's not Alonso's fault. No, your team cheated. You get stripped of that prize. This is how corrupt this sport is.
Massive shame all round for the sport.
Crofty, I've got another hour and a half on air. I could happily fill that time having a chat with you about this, but we've got...
Chatting shit, lying to kids.
Advertisement breaks, and I'm afraid we're going to have to go now. So thank you very much for joining us.
That is just one example of the lies being told to fans of this sport by this sport. Everybody needs to start seeing this and waking up to the lies that are just constantly being given to fans of the sport to gaslight you, to condition you to accept a fraud. Please share these videos to other fans of Formula One. Get people to wake up to what is really going on in this sport. The whole thing was fixed in 2021. Very little has changed. You cannot trust this sport to actually conduct itself in a manner where we're going to see fair competition. So you're watching a sport that you cannot trust. Until we actually get justice for 2021 and those perpetrators are brought to justice, then you are wasting your time watching the sport of Formula One. So please share this content. Thank you for your time. Subscribe to the channel because there is a lot more to come on this.